caso energía renovable, por lo tanto, me parece que ya es un trinomio: agua,
Sí.
energía y alimento. Yo creo que deberíamos empezar a hablar en ese lenguaje, no en el lenguaje siempre de agua y energía, sino añadir la tercera pata, que es la pata de alimentos. Muy interesante, muchas gracias. Y he quedado encantado con ver las fotos esas. Yo, que soy un habitual en los invernaderos del sureste de Gran Canaria, bueno, me gustaría ver un poco de eso cerca nuestra. Pasamos a la siguiente ponencia. Es un proyecto muy interesante que se llama el proyecto Comunidades, Comunidades Energéticas de Renovables. No voy a entrar, pero ella nos lo va a explicar. Pero este proyecto europeo es sin duda uno de los que más de vanguardia están en este momento. Con nosotros nos acompaña Maria Rosaria Di Nucci, espero haberlo dicho bien, y nos va a presentar este proyecto, Proyecto Comunidades, que cuando se plantearon estas jornadas fue uno de los primeros que se puso encima de la mesa y fue casi obligatorio que estuviera aquí con nosotros. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias. Buenas tardes. No hablo español y comprendo un poquito. So, hablo inglés. So what I'm going to explain and illustrate to you in the next 20-25 minutes is our project Comres. I will give you a brief introduction on the starting condition on community energy and describe the dialogue we do with stakeholders and especially concentrate on the process of transferring good practices, and then I'll move to policy aspects, which are very relevant in this period, to enable, to introduce and reinforce enabling framework for renewable energy communities. And at the end, I'll try to present to you preliminary conclusion of our project. So, this is a bit different from the talks you have been hearing up to now. It is not really very much engineering into it, but it is a very important area. And why? Why community energy and renewable energy community are important at the time? It is so that the supply and demand on the energy market are changing. Actually, the whole market is changing. And the continuous electrification, but also the digitalization of the economy is putting a lot of pressure on the system. And moreover, the increasing share of renewables and the volatility of the renewable energy puts a challenge on the flexibility, and flexibility is also a challenge for the energy system.
Perdona, María.
Yes.
Una pequeña interrupción. Para los que no entiendan inglés, hay traducción simultánea. Pueden acercarse y pedir auriculares. Solamente eso.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you. But there is another factor. The war in the Ukraine has actually revealed what kind of problems our energy system in the past has generated and has again put in evidence that the choices made in the past of betting on fossil energy was a wrong choice. And actually, we have realized, not only through the dependency on Russian gas, but also on the fact that the greenwashing of nuclear energy through, for example, the taxonomy of the European Union is not the answer to the present crisis. We know, for example, that in the Ukraine, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is a ticking bomb. And this means that actually nuclear energy, never mind how green you're washing, is posing a great problem of safety, of security. So Against
Y he
this
visto ya a los
background, why
compañeros
am
de
I
mesa
talking
con
about
confianza,
this?
que
Because
a lo mejor
against
volvió el
this
taxi.
background, renewable energy communities show the
No, no, muy
solution.
bien.
And it is a solution which is a solution
Sí.
of the present. This is not
Pues mira,
future.
estuve el mes pasado y el
It
trato
can
fue
be done.
magnífico también
Why is
en
it
otro
part of
evento. Y
solution? Because the empowerment of consumers to move from passive consumption to active engagement is there, and because it generates local ownership and also local benefits. And these local benefits and local ownership generate trust. And not only generate trust, they let population accept this form of energy. So community energy offers potential for a democratic, from a bottom-up transformation of the local, but also of the national energy system. So at the end, summarizing, renewable energy communities can play an important role in the transition to a low-carbon society. And it is so that the European Union created, with the package Clean Energy for All European, gave a new head start. It created a support which was not there before for active energy citizenship and for communities. So communities are becoming from passive consumers to moving from active consumers to participants in the energy transition. And this legislative package acknowledged the role of communities and acknowledged that energy communities can help the European Union to meet climate and energy objectives. Not only that, but also to drive social innovation. So, but what are energy communities? You see here a Babel tower, La Torre de Babel. Why do I put that? Because we speak about citizen community energy, energy community, citizen energy, renewable energy communities. And most of us, most of the people think it's the same. Actually, it is not. It is not, because renewable energy communities are defined as renewable collective energy projects. But not only that, they are characterized by a democratic participation and democratic governance. But most of all, renewable energy communities generate tangible and collective benefits for the local community. So, but how do we classify them? And now the European Union, in this case, sorry if I sound too apologetic for the European Union, but this was a good groundwork. The European Union, with the recast of the Renewable Energy Directive, actually defined renewable energy communities for the first time. And a renewable energy community is a legal entity. Sorry to bore perhaps you with definition, but it is important. It is important to delimitate what communities can and cannot. And this legal entity, in accordance with the applicable national law, so which means this law has to be transposed in national law, is based on open and voluntary participation, is autonomous, and is effectively controlled by shareholders or members, and this is the most important thing, they are located in the proximity of the renewable energy project, because in the past there were some sort of dummy renewable energy communities which actually were driven by industrial interests, and they were not located near the plants, and are owned and developed by exactly that legal entity. Moreover, the shareholders are natural persons, SMEs, but also municipalities. And the primary purpose is not profit, but is to provide environmental, economic, and social community benefits for its stakeholders and for members of the local areas where the plants are located. Let me please illustrate with a few slides what our project ComRes is about. So, ComRes means community energy for the uptake of renewable in the electricity sector. And we like also to show how we are trying to connect long-term visions with short-term actions. So what we want to do, we want to increase the share of renewables by facilitating the development and supporting the implementation of enabling frameworks for renewable energy communities. I coordinate this project. This is a project with 16 partners from 9 different countries. Here in this room, I'm ever so happy to see my estimados colegas of Ecoris, Nicoletta del Bufalo and her team, and Xenia Jimenez of Acer, who is only one, but she works for 3. So, and the partners come from Belgium, Germany, Italy, Latvia, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, and of course, Spain. If you look at this map, you can not only see that we are very well geographically spread, you can also see that, for example, Spain concentrates on the islands. But one of the characteristics of our project is that there are, in these countries, you have different level of implementation and development of renewable energy communities. And we have countries where they're more developed than in others, but also in these countries, there are some areas that are catching up. So for this reason, our project considers target regions and model regions. So the target region is actually the region that is trying to catch up and learn from the same region, from the region in the same country. Why? Because it's much easier to learn from similar regions because the contextual factors are the same, legislation is the same, and so on. And each region has also a technological focus of the activities. For example, in Germany, we concentrated on wind, but in Spain, it's most solar energy, and most of the countries opted for solar energy because it is much easier also in terms of community energy to install PV rather than wind plants. So these are more or less very schematically the project activities that we have in the target regions. We started with the analysis of the framework conditions, followed by the analysis of the potentials for renewable energy communities. We then analyzed the barriers, but also the drivers for renewable energy communities and specific financing instruments and ad hoc business models. Then we went to select 31 good practice cases in the 9 countries. Out of them, we distilled 10 best practices. And out of these 10 best practices, we have chosen 5 to transfer. I come back to transfer process later on. But what we're doing now, we did the monitoring in the various countries of the transposition of the Renewable Energy Directive I've shown you before, and we made a comparative policy assessment, which I will show you also in a minute. At the end, we will come up with the policy recommendations and action plans proposals, which we will put forward at national and local level, but also for the European Union. And down there, I mean, these are vertical elements, but down there you see also horizontal elements. And these are the stakeholder dialogues that we do in all countries. And how do we do this stakeholder dialogues? We carry out thematic workshop, roundtable with policymakers in the so-called country desks. And this is, I would say, one of the major characteristics of our project, a continuous but also direct dialogue with stakeholders, and we receive a lot of feedback from them. So what we did was to form stakeholder desks in these 9 countries. We first started with the analysis of the barriers and the way to overcome them. We developed jointly some solution to overcome them. We got support for the transposition and implementation of the provision at local and national level. And we are just doing it now. Tomorrow, for example, the Spanish desk will meet. We started to discuss action plans for the target region to promote cooperative energy approaches. And at the end, we also prepare transfer roadmaps to accommodate the best practices. I was talking before about it. But we not only talk about, we talk with our stakeholders, and we exchange opinion in these desks. We also had a survey, and this was what we did in May and June. And what it interested us was to find out again about the main barriers, but also the opportunities, and also which technologies and field activities were considered most promising, and also the potential role of the renewable energy communities in the energy transition. I cannot show you the results of the survey. You can find that online on our website here, just to give you an idea. It was about 531 respondents, and there was a big variation between the countries. I mean, Italy was exceptionally high at 180, Germany 49, Spain 44. So in a way you could say Italy was a bit dominating the whole, could bias a bit the whole picture, but we never had the ambition of being statistically relevant. We really wanted to get the voice of our stakeholders. And if you look at this is only in one case. It is the fields considered most relevant. You can see the results for Spain and the general results. You can notice that Spain is very much in trend with the general response, with exception for heating generation. At a global level of the project, heating generation is considered more relevant than it is in Spain. So, and I move now to the transfer of best practices. This is what we did in the summer and autumn this year. We started identifying the transferable best practices. We organized a transfer process, and this transfer process moved from Holland to Germany, from Belgium to Italy, from Italy to Latvia, whilst Spain and Poland decide to have an internal transfer. So we formed transfer teams made out of project partners, experts from the so-called learning regions. So the ones that are going to implement the best practice. And these were moderated and got helped by the so-called mentoring regions, which were the countries or the region where the good practice or best practice was coming for. And what this whole process will end with the development of transfer roadmaps, and the transfer of roadmaps will culminate with signing a sort of memorandum of understanding between the learning region and the mentoring region. And the idea is that this cooperation, which started, is going to continue also after the end of the project. I mean, I don't know if you can classify it like, is there a life like death? But this is what we would like to have, that at the end of the project, our mission somehow continues, and what we started already continues. Here you can see the ones with the arrows are the projects out of the 10 best practices which are going to be transferred. And you can see here a bit more plastically how actually this movement of learning and mentoring region is working in the project. And if you look at the dates, you can see that the so-called return visit have just about terminated. So and now I come really to my preferred session, which is policy. I work in the policy department at a university, and for us it's really important the relations with the policymaker and the way of implementing also the level of policy, what we do at scientific and practical level with the European project. You can have fantastic European projects, but it doesn't work if they remain as a report. You have to transport whatever conclusions and whatever findings you have into policy in order to be able to move something. So, and I like to think and to say that ComRes has had an impact on policy, because we already had, especially through our stakeholder dialogues, we had political recognition, and somehow we managed to influence some policy processes. Not in all countries. I come from Germany, and in Germany it's very, very difficult to do something which is more than has already been done, because the German policy in this area is relatively advanced. But especially in Poland, in Spain, in Italy, and also in Latvia, there have been very, very good results. Actually, the Latvian electricity energy market design in some annotation mentions our project ComRes 3 times, which was for us, we were very proud of it. And you can see that in the policy roundtable, quite a lot of institutional actors participated, but also we participated in consultation process at the European level and national level, and we participated at the European Sustainable Energy Week in 2021 and also in 2022, and collected some statement of support from German, Italian, Spanish, and Norwegian institutional actors and decision makers. And now I come again where I stopped before, and it is the enabling framework, the so-called enabling framework. You can see that actually the member states have a very ambitious agenda to implement. They have to ensure, in order to implement and enhance renewable energy community, that regulatory, unjustified regulatory and administrative barriers are abated, that RECs are subject to fair, proportionate and transparent procedure, which is missing in most cases, that the participation is accessible to all consumers. And when we say to all consumers, means also to low-income and vulnerable households, which means renewable energy communities are a good vehicle, a good tool also to combat energy poverty, which in many states is really, and especially now that the prices of gas is galloping, is really a very ambitious thing. Then also tools to facilitate access to finance and information, and regulatory and capacity building support. And I miss now what is put there on the second dot, which is actually the most tricky point of all, and it is to ensure that distribution system operators cooperate with renewable energy communities. This is really a very, very high barrier. It's only up to now in Belgium and in the Netherlands that the distribution system operators, these companies, tolerate or live together with renewable energy companies without making their life difficult, put it in this way. So I'm coming almost to an end. The key challenges. You have seen now quite a big list of to-dos which the various countries have to do in order to enhance renewable energy communities and implement the enabling framework. So there is a transposition, there are many differences in the transposition of the renewable energy definitions. The pathways are also different regarding the legal concept. And sometimes if you start first, you have some advantages, but there are countries where cooperatives had a tradition and there was done quite a lot, although cooperatives are not necessarily renewable energy communities. And in this country, sometimes pre-existing legal frameworks brought to a sort of quasi-definition, but it is not the definition which is meant to be according to the Renewable Energy Directive. But other challenges is the energy sharing, as I said, and cooperation with the ESO. Without rules, without instruments to enable energy sharing, it will be more difficult than ever to install an energy community. Think about Germany. Germany is very advanced, but for example, energy sharing in Germany is not working. Why is it not working? Because the government is postponing regulation because they want to do it after they do the new electricity market design. And now probably what I'm going to reveal to you, you say, oh God. And also because in Germany there are no smart meters. And how do you do energy sharing if concerning smart meters you live in the Flintstone world? So another challenge is the equal footing with other market participants. So renewable energy communities should be considered as equal as producers, suppliers, and energy service providers. And I come to the very, very last difficult point, to the challenge, and this is the proximity. Proximity is defined geographically or technically. In Germany, for example, it's defined geographically. It's more or less an area of 50 kilometers, or communities that live under the same so-called postal code. But in Italy, for example, it's rather complicated. It has got to do with consumers or producers that live under the same, at the beginning was secondary cabin, and now should be the primary cabin. So we talk about different voltage level. And actually in Spain is also something similar with the voltage. Non-discriminatory charges for using the grid is also another of the challenges. So if you look at this picture, actually it is not the most up-to-date. I didn't change it because, as you see, Germany is red, and now in the ResCoup picture, Germany is green, which, according to me, is not correct. It should stay red because too many things have not been implemented. But you can see now more or less who are the virtuous and are the vicious cases. And I come to an end. The enabling framework. What we did in this project, we did comparative assessment of all elements of a framework enabling the enhancement of the communities. And you can see we did the assessment concerning the assessment of barriers and potential, integration in spatial planning, regulatory administrative barriers, integration in planning of urban infrastructure, transparent cost and benefit analysis, non-discriminatory treatment, and so on. And if you check there, I mean, we had some criteria in order to define whether it was 1, 2, 3, or 4 or more. You can say Spain is not doing bad at all compared to other countries, and also considering that Spain started a bit later than any other countries. And also, in this case, in the case of support scheme and incentive, Spain is actually doing quite well because you are considering renewable energy communities in your renewable energy support schemes, and because you also have dedicated support schemes for renewable energy communities, and you have tax reliefs and other fiscal measures and reduced network charges. So the preliminary results are that progress of the transposition of the Renewable Energy Directive is varied. By now, only Belgium, only a region in Belgium, the Flanders, and Italy have made the most progress in transposing the definition. Mind you, I'm talking about definition and also possible market activity. But transposition is more than just I came late, I get the international, I get the EU law, and I copy and paste. I mean, you have to put some content in it. And so there are many countries that have reached the legal definitions, but they are stuck there. They make little progress about it. So there are countries making, remember the list I showed to you with the various elements, a lot of progress in the definition, but also in the implementation of the enabling framework. But there is not a single country that would fully or largely comply with the minimum requirement which is listed in the Renewable Energy Directive. So at the end, the enabling framework are fragmentary, and among the most advanced countries you can find Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, and somehow also Germany. Now, so what to do? Continue to implement and remove the existing barriers. And when I talk about barriers, the most crucial barrier to remove are the long, very long permitting procedures. So the authorization. Get rid of technical and geographical restriction concerning proximity. For example, in Italy, there is already a law moving from 200 kilowatt to 1 megawatt, so which is the secondary cabin. It was the beginning, should be the primary cabin. And it is important to use financing instrument of the European Union. For example, the Recovery and Resilience Fund is very important. And countries like Spain, Poland, Portugal making use of it. Italy, for example, is going to use 200 billion euro to implement renewable energy communities in municipalities that are there are smaller than 5,000 inhabitants. And if you think about 5,000 inhabitants, means that with this kind of instrument, you try to get two objectives. By doing this, you can combat also the depopulation of these small villages. And promising policies are quantitative targets for example, in Belgium, Netherlands, and Poland. In Italy, for example, there are only 2 or 3 regions that have quantitative target, dedicated support and consideration of renewable energy communities in support scheme design. So at the end, what we really know now is to move from the experimental phase to a real new regime, which means you have to set up a proper renewable energy communities governance, which means, when I talk about the governance, is renewable energy communities and enabling framework are a multi-level governance task. You start from the municipality, you move to the region, you end up with a national level, and most of all, also European. And now I really come to an end. If you want to know more about it, we just have published a one-stop solution platform together with Rescoop, which is the umbrella organization of all renewable energy community and cooperatives. And in order to do that, you have to join. Please do it. And again, a bit of publicity in own thing. If you would like to know more about it, you can read the policy brief, where we say that we are close with the enabling framework, but not quite there. And you can read the whole story there on our website. So thank you very much for your attention, your patience. It was a pleasure.
Muchas gracias, María. Muchas gracias por la presentación.